The story begins with Jiang Qiumin, or Marcelino, a 30-year-old former boxing champion who currently works as a gallon delivery boy. He is quiet and seems to have a dark and mysterious past. Despite being a former champion, his life is now dull and depressing. He starts his part-time job as a parking lot attendant, replacing his retired senior. While at the post and watching a drama, suddenly a girl enters the post while acting friendly, even though he doesn't know her. When Marcelino asked who she was, he was surprised. At that moment, he realized that she was blind. The woman thought Marcelino was her senior who used to work there. Marcelino told her about his retired senior, and she explained that she used to watch TV with him. Knowing that the senior no longer worked there, she apologized and left. But at the time, it was raining outside, leaving the blind girl standing in the cold night, waiting for the rain to stop. Marcelino, feeling sorry for her, invited her back to the booth and watched TV with him. The blindly girl looked happy while watching TV, despite not being able to see what was happening. After the TV show was over, the girl then gave Marcelino the food she had made. She also asked him to watering the night jasmine plants regularly in the post office cubicle. This unusual encounter brought a little light into his dull life. Back at his home, Marcelino ate the food the girl gave him and shared it with his pet tortoise. It was then that he finally decided to do something with his life. The blindly girl worked in the customer service department and answered phone calls from customers. Her job is tough, as customers are often rude, but she tries to persevere because it's the only job she can do, especially since her creepy boss is interested in her. Meanwhile, Marcelino decides to visit his old gym. Seeing that, his trainer is very happy to see Marcelino. The gym owner doesn't seem to have forgiven Marcelino. That's because it turns out that after winning the championship, Marcelino disappeared without a trace. This made the gym owner, who supported Marcelino with everything he had, suffer a huge loss. His coach then took Marcelino around the gym, where he ran into an old rival. The rival seemed to have unfinished business with Marcelino and asked him to spar. However, Marcelino did not seem to have fully regained his fighting spirit. Seeing how cowardly he was, the gym owner became furious and kicked him out. Nevertheless, the blind girl returned the next night to watch the same television drama series. This time, she constantly asked Marcelino about what was happening on the television screen. Little by little, Marcelino became attached to her. When the drama was over, Marcelino then gave the girl a box of peaches as a thank you for the meal. When he wanted to go home, Marcelino finally knew the girl's name, Junghua. Although cheerful, Junghua's life as a blind person is not easy. She often experiences difficulties in her daily life, especially since she lives alone. The next night, Marcelino waited anxiously for Junghua. As usual, they both enjoyed the drama together. This time they got to know each other better, because Junghua was curious about Marcelino's face. After finishing, Junghua walked to her house as usual. However, this time there was a driver who drove carelessly and almost hit her. Seeing that Junghua's leg was sprained, Marcelino immediately took her to the hospital. After that, Marcelino carried Junghua on his back through countless stairs all the way to Junghua's house. Marcelino couldn't believe Junghua had to walk up those stairs every day. At her house, Junghua asks Marcelino for help unclogging the drain, which, as it turns out, is clogged by Junghua's own underwear. Because she was still embarrassed, Junghua then gave a gift to Marcelino for helping her. The gift was 2 tickets to a music concert. However, Marcelino has no friends, so the two of them plan to go together. This certainly made Marcelino and Junghua feel excited. On the day of their date, they enjoyed their time together at the music concert. After that, they had dinner together. It turns out that Junghua used to be a normal person, but she lost her eyesight in an accident. Her parents also passed away because of that. However, when it was Junghua's turn to ask Marcelino about his past, for some reason Marcelino became uncomfortable. Marcelino suddenly became cold and accidentally mocked Junghua about the food spilled on her dress, so it made Junghua in a bad mood. As a result, it made Junghua end the date. Even so, Marcelino still walked Junghua back to her door. Marcelino also apologizes for ruining their date that night. Just before Junghwa entered his house, Marcelino showing the courage to tell her a little about his past. He used to be a boxer and got into a lot of trouble when he was young. That's why Marcelino is just a water-gallon porter now, but he's trying to get better these days. The next day, Junghwa was called by her boss to his office. He gave her a gift and seemed to be trying to seduce her. But it made Junghwa uncomfortable, and she politely walked out of the boss's room. After work, instead of doing her usual activities with Marcelino, Junghwa went straight home. This of course makes Marcelino sad, as he's been waiting all day for her to fix his mistake. After a night of reflection, Marcelino decided to meet with his old trainer and the gym owner. Marcelino still silent and looked helpless as the gym owner became angry. That's because Marcelino still hadn't explained why he was leaving. But finally he gathered his courage and said with shame that he had been imprisoned for 4 years and 3 months after the championship. Back then, Marcelino was a debt collector who beat up borrowers who didn't pay the debt. The police came to his room one night because they were making too much noise. Until the scene moved outside the building, where a car crashed because it was surprised to see someone hanging from the window of the building on fire. From that incident, the man is the one Marcelino owes a sorry to the past. The man survived the incident and is still being treated at a Catholic hospital. To this day, Marcelino often visits him to make amends. They seem to be quite close now and have forgotten their past. Later, the nurse at the hospital gave Marcelino a souvenir for his girlfriend. But since he doesn't have a girlfriend, Marcelino suddenly remembers that there's one person he's thinking of giving the gift to. At night, Junghwa walked back to her house, but when she opens the door, Junghwa is surprised to hear someone's voice behind her. It turns out to be her boss with a bottle of wine in his hand. It was obvious that the boss was drunk and forced his way into Junghwa's house. Junghwa still tried to be polite because she still needed her job, because it was very difficult to get another job due to her disability. However, the situation is getting worse, so Junghwa asks her boss to leave. The creepy boss insists and gives Junghwa the necklace. However, when Junghwa refuses, the boss gets angry and tries to get what he wants by force. Fortunately, Marcelino arrived at the right time. He then beat up the creepy boss, while Junghwa cried in shock. Marcelino came to calm Junghwa down, but Junghwa gets angry because she might lose her job now. Then Marcelino tells her that he'll take care of her now. But Junghwa feels that it makes her suffer even more. Then Junghwa tells Marcelino to leave her alone. There's nothing more to say. Marcelino then left. Before leaving, Marcelino leaves the gift the nurse gave him this afternoon and then goes back to his work. Things were getting awkward between them, but Marcelino couldn't leave her alone. So for the next few days, Marcelino decided to follow Junghwa secretly just to make sure she was okay. One night, Junghwa looks calm and suddenly approaches Marcelino again. Junghwa invites him to go on a short weekend trip. This of course made Marcelino happily accept. On the day of the trip, Marcelino showed up at her house with a cute little dog. He adopted it so that it could accompany Junghwa. As a result, the three of them went on a trip and enjoyed nature. In short, they talked about various things by the river and kept 2 pebbles rock as a memento. They each kept one to remind each other. And with that, it was the beginning of their beautiful relationship. Now Marcelino had a reason to live. He decided to return to the gym and train for MMA tournaments. He won most of his fights and became quite successful. Marcelino then redesigned Junghwa's house, where they now live together, to make it more comfortable. For him, their life together was now quite colorful, as they had each other to rely on. After some time, Junghwa takes Marcelino to her parents' burial place to introduce him. Junghwa tells Marcelino more about her family, how she lost her sight and both her parents in a car accident. That's when Marcelino realizes that the same incident got him arrested. So the reason Junghwa lost her sight and her parents was because of him. This shocking revelation left Marcelino devastated, but he still didn't dare to tell Junghwa about it. On the other hand, Junghwa's eyesight was getting worse. The doctor said that her vision was very blurry, and it was diagnosed that it would soon turn black. Zhenghua had to have a transplant immediately, but there was no donor yet, so the doctor advised Marcelino to just buy one. However, it was quite expensive. Needing money, he went to an old rival for money. Then his old acquaintance introduced him to a sketchy boss, where he signed Marcelino up for an illegal fight in Thailand. Marcelino got enough money for Zhenghua's surgery, but he now has to do a questionable fight soon. Marcelino keeps the job a secret from Zhenghua and tells her that he has savings for the surgery. At first, Zhenghua refuses, as being blind makes her feel less guilty about her parents' death. But when Marcelino asks if she wants to see her face and that of their future children, Zhenghua agrees. Marcelino then accompanied Zhenghua at the hospital until the surgery began. Then he leaves for Thailand without telling her. There it turned out that the fight was a bloody cage fight until one of the fighters fainted. Several wealthy patrons watched the fight live, and it was also broadcast to the illegal underground gambling world. Marcelino tried hard to survive the fight. A brutal fight ensued between the two. Each of them had not yet reached the rounds in the fight. However, surprisingly, Marcelino survived and emerged victorious. This made his old rival very angry, because it turned out that he had placed a bet against Marcelino. The prize for the fight was a diamond that he had to smuggle back to Korea. But just before he wanted to leave Thailand, his old rival and his men came to confront Marcelino. Then they stole the diamond. Meanwhile in Korea, Zhenghua has completed her surgery and regained her eyesight. But no matter how long she waits, Marcelino cannot be found. Just before Zhenghua leaves, a package arrives for Marcelino from the Catholic hospital. She then goes there and meets the injured man. And the nurse there, they instantly recognize Zhenghua as Marcelino's girlfriend because she often talks about him. After hearing the story about her accident, Zhenghua realized what really happened. She also pondered for a while. However, it seems that Zhenghua has found peace about the whole accident. Life goes on, and she now makes sculptures in his workshop. Zhenghua tries to replicate Marcelino's face, but ultimately fails, as she has never seen his face. As time passed, Zhenghua's life stabilized. She also did a lot of volunteer work at the hospital, and this time, Marcelino was unexpectedly one of the patients there. Zhenghua massages Marcelino without really knowing who he really is. Marcelino also tried to keep quiet because he wanted to break his relationship with Zhenghua. Currently, Marcelino's body has been damaged, so he doesn't want to be a burden. After Marcelino was discharged from the hospital, he visited Zhenghua's shop. Marcelino buys a vase with night jasmine plants and takes back his pet turtle. Outside the shop, the dog recognized Marcelino and ran towards him. Zhenghua only recognizes him as a patient from the hospital and apologizes, then she walks away. When she returns to the store, Zhenghua realizes that her pet turtle is gone and her dog keeps barking. She immediately realized that it was Marcelino. Frantically, Zhenghua ran out to look for him, but in the end, it was in vain. She then thought hard and went to the place where they traveled before. As fate would have it, the two of them met there. The story ends with the two of them finally meeting again, and they are happy. Together with that meeting in the memorable place, the movie ended.